hadn't felt his legs in 15 years, yet the moment her tiny hands touched his knees, something impossible stirred, something that would change every life inside that courtroom. Before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment where you're watching from. Drop your country name and the time there below. No one expected a miracle that morning. People entered the courtroom thinking it would be a routine sentencing, cold, predictable, already decided long before the accused ever spoke. But fate had plans no one could imagine. The courtroom was packed, buzzing with whispers, clacking keyboards, and restless feet. Lawyers adjusted their ties with bored expressions. Reporters angled their cameras. Guards stood like statues, and families waited with the dull heaviness of dread. The judge was ready to issue the final verdict in a case most believed was already sealed. And then a small voice broke the silence. A girl, no older than 7, stepped forward, thin, trembling, clothed in a faded dress and sneakers that had lived far longer than they should have. Her eyes were swollen from crying, yet burning with something fierce and unyielding. She faced the judge without hesitation and spoke words that sent shockwaves through the hall. "I will make the gentleman walk if you release my father." For a heartbeat, the entire room froze. Even the judge, who prided himself on being unshakable, lifted his gaze sharply. Then the laughter erupted. It started with a snort from one of the reporters. Then a chuckle spread to the lawyers. Soon the entire courtroom rippled with mockery. Some people doubled over laughing. Others whispered cruel things that echoed through the marble walls. A child promising a miracle in a courtroom? To them, it was ridiculous. Judge Fausto, known citywide for his ruthless adherence to the law, stared down at the girl. His face, carved with years of stern expressions and stone-cold logic, barely moved. He had sentenced criminals, dismantled lies, and stood firm against emotional pleas countless times. Yet something about this tiny figure made his jaw tighten. "Child," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut stone, "your words do not belong in a court of law. Miracles do not rewrite verdicts." The girl did not blink. Behind her, her father, Ramiro, sat in handcuffs, shaking with humiliation and grief. Tears streamed down his face. He tried to rise, to stop her, to beg her not to disgrace herself, but guards pushed him back down. "Please, daughter, don't do this," he whispered. But Veronica, fragile, fearless Veronica, refused to move. People whispered that she was delusional. They called her desperate. They mocked her innocence. But her voice rang through the courtroom with an unshakable certainty that unsettled even those who claimed they believed in nothing. "I can do it. I will make the gentleman walk." Judge Fausto tried to laugh, but the sound caught in his throat. He knew what she was referring to. His paralysis, the accident that had left him confined to a wheelchair for over a decade. Doctors told him he would never walk again. He had built his life around that truth. And yet, something in her tone gave him pause. "You have 2 minutes," he said harshly, masking the tremor in his voice. "Show me this miracle. When you fail, we continue with the sentencing." The courtroom snickered, eager to watch a child embarrass herself. But Veronica stepped forward, shoulders trembling but spirit unbroken. Another hook flashed quietly beneath the moment. What kind of faith could make a child stand against the entire world? Veronica walked toward the judge with slow, determined steps. Every eye tracked her, some with malice, others with curiosity, and a rare few with compassion. She approached the wheelchair, knelt on the cold marble floor, and placed her small hands on the judge's unmoving knees. The room fell silent, not out of respect, but anticipation. They wanted to see her fail. They wanted the absurdity validated. They wanted to laugh again. But Veronica whispered softly under her breath, words too gentle to fully hear, but powerful enough to ripple through the air like a quiet prayer. The judge watched her with narrowed eyes, pretending he felt nothing, refusing to accept even a sliver of possibility. He had lived 15 years, without sensation from the waist down. No doctor, no treatment, no miracle worker had ever changed that. Yet now something flickered, subtle, uncertain, a brief tingling, like a memory of touch long forgotten. He told himself it was exhaustion, imagination, stress, anything but what it felt like. A man from the back shouted mockingly, "Go on, miracle girl." Make him dance. The courtroom burst into laughter again. The sound echoed cruelly, bouncing off the cold walls, wrapping around Veronica like a storm of ridicule. Her shoulders trembled. Tears filled her eyes. But her hands did not move. Her father struggled in his seat, yelling for them to stop, begging the crowd to have mercy. Guards held him down, insisting he remain silent. And then, the judge gasped. A faint twitch ran through the arch of his foot. A tiny movement, but the first in 15 long years. The laughter died instantly. A reporter's camera fell from their hands. A woman in the gallery covered her mouth. Gasps broke through the air one by one, spreading like sparks. "Did you see that?" Someone whispered. No, it's impossible." Judge Fausto tried to hide his panic, gripping the armrests so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. The tingling grew into warmth, slow, crawling warmth that traveled up his calves, through his knees, and into muscles that had slept for a decade and a half. He tried to deny it, but his own body betrayed him. Another hook emerged, louder, sharper. What happens when a man built on unbreakable certainty faces the impossible? Veronica opened her eyes. Tears stained her cheeks, yet her expression held something deeper, hope. "I told you," she whispered, barely audible but unmistakable. "The gentleman will walk." The judge swallowed hard. He tried to speak, but his tongue felt cemented to the roof of his mouth. His mind spun. For years, he thought faith was only for the desperate, for the weak, for the foolish. But now he felt something moving inside him. Not just in his legs, something shifting in the chambers of his heart. He attempted to continue the sentencing, forcing the old authority back into his voice. But as he opened his mouth, another jolt shot through his legs. Then another, and another. A sharp, unmistakable jerk made his right foot kick against the base of the wheelchair. The entire courtroom gasped in unison. Reporters scrambled, scribbling frantically. People leaned forward, eyes wide with disbelief. Even the guards forgot their posture. Veronica stood slowly, wiping her tears. She took a step toward the judge. "I said you could walk," she repeated, soft, steady, unbroken. And then, before anyone could process the moment, the judge pushed with trembling arms and began to rise. The wheelchair groaned under his shifting weight. Muscles strained. Sweat dripped down his forehead. But he continued. 1 inch. 2 inches. 3. A man who had been paralyzed for 15 years was standing. A wave of disbelief crashed through the courtroom. People stood, jaws dropped, hands trembling, eyes wide with awe. Many forgot to breathe. The judge stared down at his legs as if they belonged to someone else, shaking, weak, but undeniably alive. Tears filled his eyes, carving wet tracks down a face known for being cold as stone. 15 years, he whispered. 15 years. His voice cracked. The sound echoed through the hall, like a confession he had never meant to speak. Veronica's father collapsed to his knees in handcuffs, crying uncontrollably. Every ounce of humiliation he endured moments earlier dissolved into a torrent of gratitude and disbelief. People began crying openly. Even the harshest skeptics bowed their heads, unable to deny what they witnessed. Another internal hook tightened around every heart present. If something this impossible just happened, what else in life have we been wrong about? The judge slowly turned toward Veronica. The little girl stood still, tears streaming, yet wearing a soft smile, calm, pure, certain, as if she had known all along that this moment was waiting to happen. "Veronica," he said, voice trembling, "you have taught me something no law book in the world ever could." He turned to the courtroom, now utterly silent, awaiting his next words with the reverence of a sacred moment. "Ramiro Sandoval," he said, voice gaining strength, "is cleared of all charges." A thunderous wave of sound exploded. Cheers, sobs, applause, raw, unstoppable human emotion. People hugged strangers. Reporters dropped their equipment. Even guards allowed their stern expressions to break. Veronica ran to her father. The guards removed his cuffs. He wrapped his arms around her, shaking with relief. Their cries blended together, pain melting into joy, fear turning into freedom. Judge Fausto watched them, still standing, still crying, still trembling from the miracle unfolding through his own body. But something even deeper was changing, something inside him. For years he had lived behind walls. Walls of law, routine, certainty, pride. Walls built to protect him from the wounds of the past. But the moment the child touched him, those walls cracked. Now they collapsed completely. And he realized something profound. His body wasn't the only thing healed. His soul was too. He looked at the courtroom, filled with people who minutes earlier had mocked a child without mercy. Now they stared with humility, reverence, and a renewed sense of belief. "That little girl," he said softly, "reminded us all of something we lost. Hope, faith, the courage to believe in more than what we can see." And as the applause thundered on, Veronica lifted her head from her father's shoulder and looked at the judge, this time with gratitude rather than desperation. Something passed between them, a silent promise, a recognition that both their lives had been rewritten in that moment. The judge stood taller, not with authority, but with newfound purpose. Veronica clung to her father, her small hands gripping his shirt as if she feared the world might try to take him again. But the world had changed. The air itself felt different. No one inside that courtroom left the same person they entered as. Some left with newfound faith. Some left questioning everything they believed. Some left grateful to witness something extraordinary. But everyone left knowing one truth. Miracles don't ask for permission. They happen when a heart pure enough dares to challenge the impossible. And on that morning, a 7-year-old girl proved it.